Hello, good morning and welcome to this episode of True Potential's Money Markets. Looking back at last week's events, we saw volatility within asset markets, and that was mainly through fixed income markets due to two main data points: higher than expected inflation in the UK and central bank comments. Both of these forced investors to rethink the future path of interest rates, reducing the number of cuts that they're expecting from central banks. So, speaking of central banks, we have a number of them meeting next week. So let's look into next week's data points. Investors will mainly be focusing on the data coming out of the US this week, just due to the number and magnitude of that data. So on Wednesday, we have the PMI data released for the region. Now, that will offer investors evidence around the future path of growth, employment intentions of firms, and also pricing intentions of firms, which will have a read-through into inflationary pressures. And also on Thursday, they'll get another reading of economic growth through the release of US GDP data. So that will be useful for investors to assess whereabouts we are in the economic cycle in the United States. Both of those data points, however, will come into focus again next week when the US Federal Reserve meets for its interest rate meeting. Now, markets actually aren't expecting any change on that meeting next week, so the main focus will be on future guidance or forward guidance that the bank reveals to investors to assess the future interest rate expectations for the region. And speaking of central banks, we have two of them meeting this week. So if we start with Japan, they meet on Tuesday. Bank of Japan is currently employing very different monetary policy to other regions, where it's still using negative interest rates despite inflation being above target. Central bank members of the Bank of Japan are worried about the sustainability of inflation that they're currently witnessing, so are reluctant to increase interest rates until they see inflation coming through on a more sustainable basis. So that's led to markets not expecting any change when they meet tomorrow. However, what they'll be looking for is any guidance or any changes that they're seeing on the inflation front that would allow them to think about future monetary policy decision changes. The other central bank that's meeting this week is the European Central Bank, and they meet on Thursday. What we've been seeing out of Europe is positive data on inflation, in that it's moderating and moving back towards target. However, what the ECB will be looking at more closely is the economic growth data, which has started to slow in more recent times. So what markets will be looking at is any guidance that they get from the central bank that they're starting to think about shifting policy away from combating inflation and towards looking to support growth within the region. During all of this, we still have US earnings season ongoing, so a number of companies reporting their latest numbers from a number of different sectors. Just to name a few, we've got United Airlines, Johnson & Johnson, Netflix, AT&T, Tesla, and American Express. So a number of corporates reporting to the market their numbers, and once again, markets will be looking at any forward guidance that these companies provide on their future performance. So thank you for watching today's video, and we'll catch you in tomorrow's episode.